North Carolina, where the calm hum of daily life hides shadows that move when no one's watching. From a train carriage turned crime scene to a quiet suburban driveway echoing with gunfire, from a grocery store aisle drenched in panic to a backyard concealing the horror of betrayal. Familiar faces, fractured minds, and verdicts that lock killers away for decades. Yet the victims never return. And this is inside North Carolina's most notorious black killers, shocking murders, and true crime documentary. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Decarlos Brown. She fled one war zone to find peace, but met another kind of violence on a quiet American night. On the 22nd of August 2025, 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska boarded the Lynx Blue Line train in Charlotte, North Carolina, believing she had finally found safety. Moments later, she became the victim of a brutal, senseless attack. Her killer, Decarlos Brown Jr., a 24-year-old man with a decade-long record of arrests and untreated schizophrenia, sat just behind her. Surveillance footage later showed him writing for hours, laughing to himself, his movements erratic and disconnected from reality. At 9:46 p.m., Irina entered the carriage, scrolling her phone, earbuds in. 4 minutes later, Brown suddenly rose, pulled a folding knife from his pocket, and stabbed her 3 times from behind, one strike piercing her neck. She collapsed to the floor as fellow passengers screamed for help. Brown walked calmly off the train at the next stop, his hands still slick with blood. Police were waiting. He was arrested immediately on the platform, telling officers he didn't even know the lady at all. When investigators later questioned him, his explanation made little sense. He claimed materials inside his body had forced him to act, and that he thought Irina could read his mind. The killing shocked Charlotte. Irina had escaped the Russian invasion only 2 years earlier, settling in North Carolina to rebuild her life. As detectives pieced together Brown's background, a grim picture emerged: 14 prior criminal cases, multiple violent incidents, and repeated pleas from his family for mental health intervention. His mother had tried to have him committed several times, warning that he was hearing voices and refusing medication. A judge had even ordered a mental evaluation just weeks before the murder, but it was never completed. State prosecutors charged Brown with first-degree murder, while federal authorities added charges for committing a deadly act on a mass transportation system, STA, a crime that could carry the death penalty. His sister told reporters he had completely broken, describing the attack as the result of years of neglect by a failing mental health system. The surveillance video released by the transit agency went viral within hours. Outrage exploded online. Politicians, including former President Donald Trump, cited the killing as proof that soft-on-crime policies were destroying American cities. The case spurred North Carolina lawmakers to draft Irina's law, tightening bail rules, mandating mental evaluations, and adding public transit killings as a death penalty aggravator. Candlelight vigils were held across Charlotte. Murals appeared near the Scalybark station. Even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky paid tribute at the United Nations, saying her death symbolized how violence knows no borders. From this tragedy, the lessons cut deep. Ignoring untreated mental illness invites disaster. Public transportation must never mean public danger, and every early warning left unanswered risks a life beyond saving. Irina's story ends where it should have been safest: a train ride home. Evil did not find her in war, but in silence. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. Tiara Nicole Vinson. It started not on a battlefield, but in a quiet suburban driveway, Live, where 2 soldiers met, and only one would leave alive. Tiara Nicole Vinson, 26, an active duty soldier stationed at Fort Bragg, had built her life around structure and discipline. Assigned to the 3rd Special Forces Group as a parachute rigger, she had served since 2014. But on the 7th of May 2021, outside a small suburban home on Ferndale Drive, all discipline collapsed into violence. That afternoon, Vinson and Kelia Horton, a 22-year-old soldier and mother of 2, arrived at the same address, the home of a man they both knew, and both had loved. Horton, attached to the 525th Military Intelligence Brigade, sat inside her car in the driveway. Words were exchanged, anger rising between 2 women whose lives had collided over a relationship turned bitter. Then, witnesses say, Vinson drew her firearm and fired multiple shots into Horton's car. When officers from the Fayetteville Police Department arrived just before 1:30 p.m., Horton was slumped in the driver's seat, bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound. Life-saving measures failed. She was pronounced dead shortly after being rushed to Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. Police immediately identified Vinson as the suspect. Within hours, she was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder and discharging a firearm into an occupied vehicle. She was booked into the Cumberland County Detention Center, held without bond. The case's motive was clear: jealousy and betrayal inside a tightly knit military community. Investigators pieced together what happened in those final moments. Both women had arrived almost simultaneously, likely unaware the other would be there. The argument, brief and charged with emotion, escalated into fatal violence in seconds. Detectives collected ballistic evidence and shell casings from the driveway. Surveillance footage from nearby homes supported witness accounts. The Army confirmed that both soldiers were active duty. Fort Bragg officials described the killing as a tragic, senseless loss. A spokesperson added, "We are working closely with the Fayetteville Police Department to ensure justice is served." As news spread, grief rippled through the Fort Bragg community. Soldiers gathered for candlelight vigils. Social media is filled with tributes from friends and family, calling for peace and accountability. The incident also reignited national scrutiny of military base safety, following other high-profile tragedies like the death of Vanessa Guillen. Though the trial has not yet concluded, the facts are indisputable. A young mother, unarmed and sitting in her car, lost her life in a moment of rage. Another soldier's life ended in chains. From this tragedy, hard lessons emerge. E.g., jealousy, when unaddressed, can become lethal. Emotional disputes should never unfold at the barrel of a gun. And institutions must do more to protect service members beyond the battlefield. In the end, it wasn't a war overseas that claimed their futures, it was the silence between two soldiers who never walked away. Number 3. Alfred Lewis Logan Jr. The trail of destruction stretched across 3 states, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Alabama, leaving bodies, fear, and unanswered questions in its wake. The man behind it was Alfred Lewis, Logan Jr., a 45-year-old drifter whose violent path turned routine arrests into multi-state manhunts. Known to law enforcement for years, Logan's name became synonymous with calculated brutality after a killing spree that began in late 2021. It started on the 18th of November 2021 in Arden, North Carolina. Deputies from the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office responded to reports of gunfire at the Southwood Apartments. They found 29-year-old Kedrick Tevin Green slumped in his car, the engine still running, a fatal gunshot wound to his chest. Investigators discovered 160 grams of a white powder, believed to be methamphetamine, in the passenger seat. Witnesses reported seeing a man matching Logan's description leaving the area moments earlier. 3 weeks later, the violence spread. On December 8, Jacob Azar, 29, was found dead in a Fort Mill, South Carolina hotel room. The death was ruled an overdose, but detectives soon treated it as homicide, one linked to Logan. Hours later, in Trussville, Alabama, Logan and his girlfriend, Lindsay Nicole Carlton, attempted to carjack David Michael Hammonds, a 64-year-old engineer and father. When Hammonds resisted, Logan opened fire, leaving him mortally wounded beside a gas pump. Hammonds died 5 days later in the hospital. By then, Logan was on the run. The U.S. Marshals Service and fugitive task forces across the Southeast launched an intensive manhunt. Surveillance footage, cell phone data, and GPS pings from Green's stolen phone led authorities to Logan's home in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. On the 13th of December 2021, marshals surrounded the residence and arrested him without incident, a handgun still in his possession. Prosecutors later described Logan as a one-man wave of violence. His girlfriend, Carlton, was charged as an accessory in the Green case and for obstruction of justice in Alabama. In December 2023, Logan pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in Green's death. In Buncombe County Superior Court, Special Deputy Attorney General Arnetha James detailed the cross-state evidence trail. Logan sat expressionless as Judge Jacqueline Grant sentenced him to 30 to 37 years in prison. Even that sentence would not close his story. While in custody, Logan was charged with murdering another inmate in Wake County, earning a life sentence. In 2025, he was extradited to Jefferson County, Alabama, to face capital murder charges for Hammond's killing. Attorney General Josh Stein called him a continuing threat to every community he touched. Major John Ledford added, he showed no remorse, none at all. This case underscores hard lessons about violence that crosses borders. Organized crime breeds chaos far beyond its origin, fugitives exploit jurisdictional gaps, and the cost of delay in cooperation is often human life. In the end, Alfred Logan's story reminds us that evil rarely stays contained, it travels, it multiplies, and it leaves silence where lives once were. Number 4. Elvin Noel Baca. It began with an unanswered phone call, the kind that makes friends uneasy but rarely signals tragedy. Elvin Noel Baca, 34, was known in his Wilmington, North Carolina neighborhood as quiet, unpredictable, and sometimes unsettling. For months, he had shared a small home on Myrtle Grove Road with Lawrence Grabka, a 69-year-old retiree described by friends as the sweetest man in the world. Their arrangement was simple. Baca needed a place to stay. Grabka, too kind to turn him away, offered one. But that kindness would cost him his life. On Tuesday, the 26th of March 2024, Grabka's longtime friend, Catherine Rausch, couldn't reach him. Concerned, she drove to his home. His car was gone, but she found his wallet and phone still inside, the front door unlocked. Outside, Baca sat in his own car, calm, smiling. When she asked where Lawrence was, Baca allegedly replied, "I haven't seen him," then, chillingly, added, "I love you." Rouse later told reporters, that was the night he probably did it. The next day, she filed a missing person report. Detectives from the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office arrived for a welfare check. They found nothing disturbed inside the home. No blood, no broken glass, no signs of a struggle. But something felt wrong. Investigators decided to search the yard. Hours later, beneath freshly disturbed soil, they uncovered a shallow grave. Inside was Lawrence Grabka. By nightfall, deputies had arrested Baca. He was charged with first-degree murder and concealing a death, held without bond at the New Hanover County Detention Facility. Sheriff Edward McMahon called the discovery deeply concerning, adding, "No one should meet such an end, especially in their own home." Detectives relied on forensic soil testing, digital evidence, and witness statements to build their case, suggesting the murder may have been premeditated. The court appointed attorneys from the Capital Defender's Office, indicating prosecutors could pursue the death penalty. The crime shocked the community, not only for its brutality, but for how preventable it seemed. Rausch said she had warned her friend for months, "I told him, get rid of this guy." But Lawrence was too kind. He didn't want to put him on the street. At the courthouse, Baca appeared calm, expressionless, dressed in a gray detention uniform. He made no plea. His next hearing was set for April 18. While the motive remains unclear, detectives say the act reflects a complete disregard for human life. Community members gathered outside Grabka's home with candles and flowers, leaving notes that read, "You deserve peace." From this tragedy, 3 lessons emerge. Never ignore early signs of instability or manipulation, even from those you know. Trust your instincts when kindness begins to feel unsafe. And always report suspicious behavior before it becomes irreversible. Compassion should never mean endangering oneself. In the end, a man who opened his door out of decency met death in his own backyard. Proof that sometimes evil doesn't break in, it's already inside. Number 5. Chantarica Nasha Matthews and Inga Torrence Matthews. Behind the locked door of a roadside motel, silence hid a horror no one could have imagined. The perpetrator was Chantarica Nasha Matthews, a 29-year-old mother from Gastonia, North Carolina. In May 2022, she and her mother, Inga Torrence Matthews, were living in room 103 of the Roadway Inn in Asheville. To outsiders, they seemed quiet, private. But inside that small room, police would later say, a child was slowly dying. On the afternoon of the 2nd of May 2022, motel manager Mark Rosenbaum called police after the women refused to check out or open the door. When officers entered, they found the lifeless body of a 3-year-old boy, emaciated and covered in a thin blanket on the floor. Food sat untouched on a nearby table. His mother and grandmother were inside, calm and expressionless. Detectives from the Asheville Police Department quickly determined the child had died of starvation and dehydration. Court documents later revealed that both women withheld food and water because they believed the boy was possessed by a demon. The autopsy described the death as prolonged neglect resulting in extreme malnutrition. What began as delusion had become a fatal conviction. Both women were arrested and charged with first-degree murder, felony child abuse, and concealment of death. Investigators uncovered journals written by Chantarica in which she claimed voices told her to purify her son. Prosecutors described it as a tragic collision of faith, mental illness, and isolation. Buncombe County Sheriff Quentin Miller called the discovery one of the most disturbing cases his office had ever faced. In 2023, both defendants were declared incompetent to stand trial due to severe mental illness and transferred to Broughton Hospital for treatment. They refused food during their stay, a haunting echo of the crime. After 7 months, doctors ruled that Chantarica was competent to face prosecution. On the 30th of June 2025, she appeared in Buncombe County Superior Court before Judge Jacqueline Grant. Wearing a beige jumpsuit and looking frail, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, felony concealment, and felony negligent child abuse causing serious injury. The courtroom was silent as Judge Grant delivered her sentence, 137 to 177 months in prison, with credit for 3 years already served. The grandmother's case remains pending, as she was again found unfit to proceed. District Attorney Todd Williams told reporters, "Justice here means accountability and treatment, not vengeance." The motel manager who first alerted authorities said, "If I'd known what was behind that door, I'd have broken it down myself." The case drew attention to the failures of mental health and social systems to identify and intervene before tragedy strikes. Officials promised tighter coordination between law enforcement and mental health services statewide. From this case, 3 lasting lessons emerge. Untreated delusion can turn deadly when isolation replaces intervention. Belief unchallenged by reality can destroy what it seeks to save. And neglect often hides in plain sight, disguised as silence. In the end, one truth remains: sometimes evil doesn't shout, it whispers through those who believe they're doing good. Number 6. Maya Jones. It started with an argument that could have ended in silence, but instead, it ended in a scream. Maya Jenna Jones, 20, stood in the kitchen of her boyfriend's Charlotte home just after 2 a.m. on the 24th of March 2025. She was 12 weeks pregnant with his child. Her boyfriend, Shamari Bell Brown, also 20, had been her partner for months, but theirs was a relationship scarred by volatility and control. Police records revealed that just 3 months earlier, Jones had been charged with domestic violence and assault against him. On this night, the violence turned fatal. Downstairs, the couple's shouting woke Shamari's mother, Shay Brown. She rushed from her room and entered the kitchen to find Maya clutching a knife and her son trying desperately to pull it from her hands. Shay later told police she tried to intervene, placing herself between them. But Jones, in a burst of rage and fear, allegedly reached around Shay and plunged the blade into Shamari's chest. He stumbled backward, gasping, clutching the wound as blood filled his shirt. "Ma, please don't let this happen to me," he cried. "Mommy, help me." By the time paramedics arrived, Shamari was unconscious. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. Police officers described the scene as deeply emotional and violent. Hours later, Jones was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In court the next day, she appeared wearing a beige jail jumpsuit, her wrists shackled, her expression vacant. The judge denied bond, citing the gravity of the charge and the prior domestic violence record. Her defense attorney noted she was pregnant, requesting medical accommodations during detention. Investigators from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD, pieced together the evidence, the kitchen knife, witness testimony, and the domestic incident history that painted a picture of a relationship teetering on the edge. CMPD Major J.D. Thomas addressed reporters afterward, calling the killing a tragic reminder that domestic disputes can become deadly within seconds. The victim's mother, Shay Brown, spoke through tears, describing her son as full of life and always laughing. She recounted holding him as he died. "I'm a survivor of domestic abuse myself," she said. "If you're in that situation, please, walk away before it's too late." The case reignited local debate over domestic violence intervention and relationship counseling access, particularly for young couples. Police urged the public to seek help rather than confrontation. Community advocates organized vigils and counseling resources, emphasizing that love should never hurt this way. From this tragedy, 3 lessons cut sharply through the grief. Never ignore early signs of control or aggression. Separation and seeking help can save lives. And domestic violence is not just a private issue, it's a community responsibility. Recognizing danger early is not weakness, it's survival. As Maya Jones awaits trial in a Mecklenburg County jail, one truth remains hauntingly clear: love turned into violence leaves no victors, only echoes of what might have been. Number 7. Shannon Elizabeth Crawley. In a quiet university community where dreams of success filled the air, a single gunshot shattered every illusion of safety and trust. The story begins with Shannon Elizabeth Crawley, a 27-year-old 911 dispatcher from Greensboro, North Carolina. On the surface, she was a calm professional, a mother of 2, and a woman admired by her colleagues. Beneath that exterior, however, was an unraveling life caught between jealousy, deception, and emotional obsession. At the center of it all stood Denita Monique Smith, a 25-year-old graduate student at North Carolina Central University. Smith was engaged to Officer Jermaire Stroud, a Greensboro police officer, and the same man romantically involved with Crawley. Their entangled relationships would end in tragedy. On the 4th of January 2007, police were called to the Campus Crossing Apartments in Durham. Around 10:15 a.m., a maintenance worker found Smith lying face down at the bottom of a stairwell, dead from a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. Hours earlier, neighbors had reported hearing a shot, but officers found nothing at the time. Witnesses later recalled seeing a woman speeding away in a burgundy Ford Explorer, tears streaming down her face. That woman was Crawley. Prosecutors later argued she had driven to the complex that morning, ambushed Smith, and shot her in cold blood after months of stalking and resentment toward her romantic rival. Crawley's defense told a very different story. She claimed Stroud forced her to go to Durham that day, threatened her life, and then killed Smith himself while hiding in her car. Investigators, however, found no evidence linking Stroud to the scene. His cell phone data and alibi cleared him of involvement. As detectives dug deeper, Crawley's narrative began to crumble. She changed her story multiple times, fabricated phone recordings to frame Stroud, and even falsely accused him of rape months later. Police recovered evidence that she had lied about her movements, her possession of a gun, and her reasons for being in Durham on the day of the murder. After a 3-year investigation and multiple delays, Crawley's trial began in February 2010. Jurors watched her interrogation videos, heard emotional testimony, and reviewed her shifting statements. After 7 hours of deliberation, they returned a verdict of first-degree murder. On the 22nd of February 2010, Judge Ronald Stevens sentenced her to life in prison without parole. The courtroom was divided. Some celebrated justice, others mourned what they saw as 2 lives destroyed by a manipulative love affair. Even the judge remarked, Jermaire Stroud caused a perfect storm and walked away from it. From this tragedy, haunting lessons emerge. Unchecked jealousy can warp perception and reason. Emotional manipulation often escalates into violence. And ignoring the signs of possessive behavior can have fatal consequences. In the end, Denita Smith's death stands as a painful reminder that love, when consumed by envy and control, can become the most dangerous weapon of all. Number 8. Jalia Jones. A single argument on a staircase, ISS, one trigger pulled, and an entire community was left asking how a party turned into tragedy. 19-year-old Jalia Love Jones arrived at a crowded apartment complex in East Asheville, North Carolina, on the early morning of the 30th of January 2022. Dozens of people filled the stairwell at Spruce Hill Apartments, where alcohol, tension, and ego mixed in dangerous proportions. Among those in attendance were Carl Lee, Rod Ellington, Jr., 25, and Staquan Ty Taylor, 24. What started as an argument quickly escalated into something irreversible. Around 3:30 a.m., witnesses reported hearing a heated confrontation echoing through the complex. In the struggle that followed, a gun slipped from someone's hand and clattered to the floor. Before anyone could react, Jones picked it up. What happened next was a blur: shouts, panic, and then gunfire. 2 men collapsed to the ground, both bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds. A woman's frantic voice broke through the 911 line, "I need an ambulance now, now. I got 2 hit victims." Paramedics rushed Ellington and Taylor to Mission Hospital, but Ellington didn't survive. Taylor remained in critical condition. Police arrived at the chaotic scene and began interviewing the terrified witnesses. Within hours, Asheville Police Department detectives issued a warrant for Jones' arrest. She was taken into custody the following day and charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and illegal discharge of a firearm within city limits. Detectives noted that the weapon used in the shooting was never recovered, a key complication in building the case. In interviews, Jones maintained that she acted in self-defense, claiming she grabbed the gun only after it fell to the floor during a scuffle. But prosecutors pointed to witness testimony suggesting otherwise. The case lingered for 3 years as investigators reviewed statements, videos, and forensic evidence. On the 3rd of February 2025, now 22 years old, Jones appeared before Superior Court Judge Alan Thornburg in Buncombe County Superior Court. She entered a guilty plea to voluntary manslaughter for Ellington's death and assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury for Taylor's shooting. The judge sentenced her to a total of 8.5 years in prison, with credit for the 1,102 days she had already served in the Buncombe County Detention Center, with a offer meaning she could be released in about 5.5 years. In the courtroom, Carl Ellington Sr., father of the slain victim, supported the plea deal, telling reporters afterward, "More bloodshed won't fix anything. We all lost everything that night." As Asheville mourned its first fatal shooting of 2022, police warned against retaliation after Jones' family received multiple threats. Detective Sean Parker urged the community to let the justice system work. This tragedy serves as a stark reminder: moments of anger can destroy lifetimes, weapons escalate what words could resolve, and one reckless decision can alter every future in its path. In the end, the Spruce Hill shooting stands as another haunting chapter in America's struggle with youth violence, where impulse meets irreversible consequence. Number 9. James Dunmore. She thought she was driving toward laughter that night. Instead, she vanished into silence that would haunt a state for months. 39-year-old Alicia Watts, a respected mental health professional from Moore County, North Carolina, had been dating James Dunmore for a year. On the 16th of July 2023, she left his home in Northeast Charlotte, telling family she was heading to a comedy show with him at Bojangles Coliseum. She never arrived. 2 days later, police found Dunmore unresponsive in Watts' Mercedes-Benz SUV, parked outside a DMV office in Anson County. Investigators said he appeared to have attempted suicide. Alicia, however, was nowhere to be found. When her family couldn't reach her, they reported her missing on July 19. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department launched a massive search, combing through fields, rivers, and highways. Then came the first piece of evidence, a 9mm shell casing discovered outside Dunmore's home. Days later, his violent past came to light: convictions for stalking, assault, and abduction in Virginia, and a protective order filed by a woman who accused him of threats and abuse. For over a month, the search for Alicia consumed the state. On the 24th of August 2023, investigators made a grim discovery: human remains buried near a cemetery in rural Montgomery County. DNA later confirmed it was her. Dunmore was arrested the same day in Charlotte and charged with murder. Prosecutors built their case carefully, though evidence was circumstantial. Surveillance footage showed the couple together at Northlake Mall hours before she disappeared. Police seized clothing, phones, and electronics from Dunmore's home, yet no weapon was ever recovered. The autopsy report deepened the mystery: decomposition had erased signs of trauma, leaving the cause of death undetermined. Still, detectives insisted the timeline, evidence, and Dunmore's history painted a clear picture of guilt. This was not random, one investigator told reporters. In court, Dunmore appeared calm, even defiant, as prosecutors outlined their theory. His attorneys argued that without a definitive cause of death, the case lacked proof beyond reasonable doubt. The judge disagreed, ruling that decomposition explained the missing details. Dunmore was denied bond repeatedly, though later granted a $1 million secured bond. Prosecutors announced they would not seek the death penalty, focusing instead on life imprisonment. As the case moved slowly through pretrial hearings, public anger only grew. Dozens of supporters filled the courtroom wearing shirts reading "I am Alicia Watts." Outside, they chanted for justice, demanding Dunmore remain behind bars. Alicia's father, Addison Utley, said quietly, "Now that we've got her body, we want justice." From grief came determination and warning. Advocates urged women to recognize red flags, isolation disguised as love, partners with violent histories, and early signs of control or manipulation. Silence, they said, can be fatal. Today, James Dunmore remains in custody awaiting trial. The case stands as a painful reminder that danger often hides behind charm, and that love without safety is not love at all. Even the quietest relationships can echo the loudest warnings. Number 10. Tarell Isaac McMillian. He entered a grocery store for work and left behind a city in mourning, a police badge stained with tragedy, and questions that still echo. On the morning of the 23rd of December 2024, Officer Michael Horan, a 47-year-old Greensboro police officer and U.S. Coast Guard veteran, responded to a report of an armed man inside the Food Lion on Lawndale Drive. The call seemed routine until it wasn't. The man inside was Tarell Isaac McMillian, a 34-year-old Instacart driver working his delivery route. Moments after Officer Horan arrived, a struggle erupted near the store's front aisle. According to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, McMillian pulled out a gun before Horan could even draw his weapon. Witnesses later recalled hearing pop-pop, and then pop-pop, followed by screams of shooting. Everybody gets out. When the smoke cleared, Officer Horan lay fatally wounded, still in uniform. Shoppers fled as McMillian ran from the scene, escaping in a vehicle that triggered one of the largest manhunts in North Carolina that year. The chase spanned nearly 150 miles across multiple counties. Troopers with the North Carolina Highway Patrol finally cornered McMillian near the Duplin-Sampson County line, using a pit maneuver to stop his car. He surrendered without resistance. Authorities immediately charged McMillian with first-degree murder, along with multiple traffic and flight-related offenses. The FBI confirmed he acted alone. Investigators continued piecing together how a grocery store delivery turned into a deadly police shooting. Food Lion employees had called 911 after spotting McMillian behaving erratically with what appeared to be a firearm, though the reason for his behavior remains under investigation. Instacart later confirmed McMillian was working for the company at the time and had violated its no-weapons policy. He was swiftly terminated. When McMillian appeared in Guilford County Court on December 26, he wore an orange jail jumpsuit and showed little emotion. The judge ordered him held without bond, setting a next court date for March 2025. If convicted, McMillian could face life imprisonment or the death penalty. The city of Greensboro, already mourning another officer lost earlier that year, plunged into grief once again. Police Chief John Thompson called it a tragic, senseless loss. Governor Roy Cooper issued a statement calling the killing a reminder of the risks our officers face every day. Outside police headquarters, Horan's patrol car became a shrine, draped in flowers, flags, and handwritten notes. The Help, a hero fund launched by the Greensboro Police Officers Association, raised over $72,000 within days to support his family. From heartbreak came reflection. Authorities urged citizens to report warning behaviors early, avoid confrontations with armed individuals, and recognize that small escalations in public spaces can turn deadly within seconds. Today, Tarell Isaac McMillian remains in custody, awaiting trial. Officer Michael Horan's badge, now framed in black, stands as a solemn reminder that one ordinary call can change everything. Every second of hesitation can mean the difference between duty fulfilled and a life cut short. Each case we uncovered tonight reveals not just brutality, but choices, made in silence, in anger, in fear. If these stories shook you, don't just watch US. Remember, behind every headline is a life once full of laughter, and a warning that still whispers, it could happen anywhere. Stay vigilant. Stay aware. And if you believe every story deserves to be told, subscribe to Justice Reversed and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to see the next case that America can't stop talking about. Because the truth doesn't rest, and neither do we.